Take me to the king. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Take me to.
Hello? I'll be over there now. Another one gone. What to do?
How you doing, Miss Jack?
How you doing?
I'm gonna need you to line.
Sorry, but I can't do that.
You're gonna regret that.
Keep your head up. I'm gonna get you out.
Can't, man. Can't.
You gotta believe in me. I promise you, you're gonna get out.
That's what my legislator said.
It's okay. You just have to have faith. I'm going to get you out.
This is not me. I'll fight for my life.
It's okay. Calm down.
I'll kill you.
Calm down. I'm gonna get you out. Walter?
Now, in this case, it is suspected that a 46-year-old black male by the name of Walter McMillan, also known as Johnny D, murdered an 18-year-old white female by the name of Rhonda Morrison. A suspected accomplice and eyewitness by the name of Ralph Myers testified that he and Mr. McMillan drove down to Jackson Cleaners in Mr. McMillan's lowrider truck. After arriving, Mr. McMillan entered and he heard popping noises coming from within. Mr. Myers went to go investigate and he saw the body face up near the cash register with Mr. McMillan near it holding money in his hand. On November 1st, 1986, I found Rhonda Morrison's body at Jackson Cleaners where she had worked. The location of her body was behind a clothes rack by the bathroom. Upon inspecting the scene, I found that her clothes were undone, which showed signs of sexual assault and also a motive for murder. Also, there was a brick with hair on it, which could have been used to incapacitate Mrs. Morrison. And most importantly, she suffered from 3 bullet wounds in her back. Around the body, there was particular dust that had not been disturbed, and there was no signs that the body had been moved. Some time later, I was paid a visit by the prosecutor. He asked me to testify in court that the body had been dragged from the front of the cleaners to the back, and I told him that I wasn't willing to lie in court. Some time later, I was fired by my department. Because I was fired, I didn't get the opportunity to interrogate Mr. McMillan. But if I did, I would have used an authoritative approach and established my dominance in order to scare him into telling me the truth. As for Mr. McMillan, 7 months after the murder, he was pulled over by police and arrested. After being arrested, he was taken straight to death row.
Is it possible that the body was dragged from the counter to the back where you saw it?
In my opinion, no. There was particular dust that was around this body, and there was no evidence that the dust was disturbed.
You think that the body was where it fell when she was shot?
Yes, sir.
But did the prosecutor talk to you at all about it?
Yes, sir, the prosecutor did talk to me about it. In fact, he asked me to testify that the body had been drugged.
The prosecutor asked you to testify that the body had been dragged to the back of the cleaner?
Yes, sir, he did.
And what did you say?
I said, no, sir, I will not testify because I saw no evidence that the body had been drugged.
Hey, I am Jari Horn. I'm the forensic analyst of the Just Mercy case of Walter McMillan and the death of Rhonda Morrison. On Saturday, November 1st, when I came in, I could see that she was murdered and signs of sexual assault. I began my investigation without waiting for experts to arrive to the crime scene. I discovered Rhonda's body by the bathroom underneath the clothing rack. Rhonda's mouth was wide open, the body was laying face down, and the body was in a constant place, justifying that the body was not at the cash register. The only logic for the body being at the cash register is where the body fell after being shot. But one drop was found by the cash register. After being shot, the coroner concluded that she survived for 5 minutes. Me and my team then examined 5 spent shell casings from a .25 caliber handgun. The autopsy revealed 3 slugs in Rhonda's body, 1 fired from close range. 3 spent bullet casings and a part of a bullet was found near her body. Another casing was found in the bathroom in the rear of the establishment about 50 feet away from Rhonda's body, and 1 was found outside of the bathroom door, and 1 bullet hole was found in the bathroom ceiling. The setting of the bathroom was a very significant part of this murder case. The bathroom showed signs of struggle. Rhonda's gold necklace was found on the floor. A brick was found with hair on it. This made an impression in the wall, apparently of the brick being hurled against the wall. Dust was on Rhonda's clothing. Her blouse was unbuttoned, pants were unzipped, her bra was pushed over her breast. We then seen that she was bludgeoned. There were signs of strangulation, including a sex crime. At the time, semen was ruled out by the coroner. There was numerous scratches and bruises on the right side of her neck. Unfortunately, my search for fingerprints were hindered by the presence of customers, the relative inexperience of town sheriffs and deputies rushing in and out into the scene, which led to the destroyed fingerprints, while they carried the body away before ABI could even get to it. When the ABI finally did show up, they examined fingerprint powder on nearly every surface. Rhonda's body was already taken to the funeral home, thus making it hard to be accurate by detailing the fibering examination at the scene, the hair, the exact location of the body, facial expressions, the color of the victim's skin, and similar evidence, which was impossible. Some techniques used to analyze evidence for fingerprints were dusting and digital scanning to locate and analyze fingerprints left at crime scenes. To determine if the person was shot close range, I then looked at the presence of stippling and the powder burns on the skin, as well as the pattern of the gunshot wound to detect that she was shot close up. Concerning that she was sexually assaulted, evidence should have been found from hair strands left at the crime, underneath the fingernails to look for DNA cells, as said there were signs of struggle and some type of fight. Evidence from the cash register, as there was shown to say that there was blood near it. The evidence that the forensic scientists collected was outstanding, from the DNA, hair strands, blood strands, clothing items, but since the crime scene was poorly debriefed, too much evidence was hindered to make a strong verdict on who did this. Do your homework on it's not even the forensic scientist's fault on what just happened in this crime scene. It's the outsider's fault. Do your homework on that. He did his best. I did my best to analyze the crime, but all my hard work didn't pay off. What we all been waiting for? No physical evidence linked Walter McMillan to the crime. Hey, get him up out of there, bro. He free, he innocent, he a black king. Oh, wait.
Nadia Cox, and I'm the forensic architect in the Just Mercy case. As shown, the victim's body was found by the bathroom. Her clothes have been undone. She had 3 bullet wounds on her back. One had looked like it had been shot up close. There was a brick found next to the victim's body, which had particle dust around her body, which we could tell had not been moved, so we could tell that her body had not been drugged anywhere. Her clothes were undone because we seen her pants were unzipped. Her bra was pushed off of her breast, and her top was undone. It looked like there might have been a sex crime, but there was no evidence of semen or nothing that could portray that.
Today we gathered to address a tragic incident that occurred in our community, an incident that resulted in the loss of a young woman's life. It is our solemn duty to seek justice for the victim, Rhonda Morrison, and her family. On this night, Rhonda Morrison's life was brutally cut short. I will present evidence, eyewitness accounts, and a timeline of events they will establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Walter McMillian is the individual responsible for this heinous crime. There was in fact a witness who was present at the scene who saw Mr. McMillian in the vicinity and who would testify to his actions that night. The evidence against McMillian consisted chiefly in the following testimony. Ralph Myers said that he and McMillian drove to Jackson Cleaners on November 1st. He said that while waiting for McMillian, he heard popping noises, went to the store himself, and saw McMillian near the victim's body with money in his hands. This reveals a clear connection between McMillian and the events that unfolded on a tragic evening. Furthermore, physical evidence, including witness statements and ballistics reports, will link Mr. McMillian to the crime scene. Expert witnesses will provide testimony that supports our case. Ladies and gentlemen, this trial is not about revenge or prejudice. It is about accountability and justice. The victim and her family deserve justice, and it is our responsibility to ensure that justice is served. We will demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that Walter McMillian is the individual responsible for the crime in question. We ask that you carefully evaluate the evidence presented in this courtroom, set aside any biases, and make a fair and just decision based on the facts. Justice Verona Morrison demands that we hold the responsibility party accountable and should give him the death penalty. We seek your commitment to this pursuit of justice as we present our case. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sanasia Bell, and I'm the defense attorney for the Just Mercy case of the killing of Rhonda Morrison. My client is Walter McMillian. Before Walter McMillian was a suspect, he had no criminal records and no records of any violent activities. He was a self-employed logger, and he worked for many people in his community. Mr. McMillian was convicted of a murder of a white female and sentenced to death row, but I know for sure he didn't do it. For starters, there was only one testimony, and there was no evidence, no DNA evidence at all to connect him back to the murder.
Come in.
Hello, how you doing, sir?
What?
Can I get all the evidence for the Walter McMillian case, please?
Let me see if I can find that for you. Here it is right here.
See what we have here. This can't be. This can't be. Sir, I asked for all the evidence, by the way.
That's all we have.
This it? Oh, me and my client will be seeing you in court. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day. The evidence used against Mr. McMillian was a testimony from Ralph Myers. In this testimony, Ralph Myers stated that Walter McMillian had drove both of them to Jackson Cleaners November 1st. As Walter went into the cleaners, Mr. Myers had waited in the car. Later on, Mr. Myers claimed that he heard popping noises coming from inside the cleaners. Once he went inside the cleaners to look for himself, he seen Mr. McMillian standing over the victim's body and with a stack of money in his hand. That's it. With that one testimony, that put Mr. McMillian to death row for 6 years. That's all it took. There was no fingerprints. There was no hair evidence. There was no DNA evidence. There was no footprints. There was nothing. There was nothing at all. But he was put to death row before they even put him as guilty. But let's talk about what Mr. McMillian was really doing at the time of the murder. During the time of the murder, Mr. McMillian was 11 miles away from the scene. He was around 30 other people, and he was at a church fish fry. So, why would Ralph Myers lie? At the time, Ralph Myers was already dealing with a sentence upon him. So he was pressured from the sheriffs and the investigators of the case to lie about what happened. And when he lied, they said that he would get a lesser sentence. Once I got the case to Supreme Court, Ralph Myers stated that he was forced to lie in his testimony and he actually didn't know anything related to the case. Later on, Walter McMillian was proven innocent and he was released March 2nd, 1993. Even though Walter McMillian was released from prison, being on death row for 6 years was a traumatic experience for him. While he was in prison, he witnessed 8 executions, and that led to him suffering from early onset dementia. After prison, he had lost his logging business, and he had sold old car parts until he was too ill to do anything. He later died September 11, 2013.
Truth is, I'm tired. Options are few. I'm trying to pray, but where are you? I'm all churched out, hurt and abused. I can't face